name is Jorie Myers. I am based out of Atlanta, Georgia. I am a dispatcher by trade and a consultant just because I love the business, man. There are so many things that you can do once you're involved in the supply chain. And, I'm continuously learning things, different avenues. So I'm just extremely excited to be here. So thank you to everybody that tunes in every single week. Greatly appreciate it. It looks like we have our esteemed guest on the stage. We have Brother Adam. Adam, please introduce yourself, brother.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Adam Wingfield, founder and managing director of Innovative Logistics Group. Thanks for having me on, Jorie.
No doubt, man. It's a pleasure. You got a wealth of knowledge, a lot of experience, just like hands-on experience. So, I pray that we're able to, go through and talk about those different things, and people can get a lot of, insights and learn how to, do things the right way the first time. How do you feel about that?
Oh, absolutely. Let's do it.
All right. Well, cool, man. So you said Innovative Logistics Group. And if you could tell me, I know you guys do a few things, but can you give me the high level departments within your organization?
So we, just like you stated, we do quite a few things in terms of carrier support. But one of the things that we hang our hat heavily on is our consultant side. And with that mentorship, not only do we provide the hand-in-hand guidance for folks who are either getting into business, who've been in the business or looking to scale their business, but we also provide them with a variety of resources via our carrier services team. And whether that be resources such as fuel and factor in, we provide insurance, financing. We also provide ELDs, anything that you can name of from top to bottom, including truck and trailer search, just anything that would take for you to be successful in the industry. We wanted to hold ourselves high as a one-stop shop. And that's one of the things that we wanted to make sure that we entered the industry as that's a one-stop shop.
Yes, sir. I mean, that's truly a one-stop shop. And I don't even think you said everything you do.
No.
I think nah. Exactly. So, we talked about the consulting side, you being a coach, being able to mentor folks. What's something else? What's another division within Innovative Logistics Group?
So we also have recruiting. To where we started a recruiting firm to help place quality drivers. And we also have a load planning side, which, we call it load planning, but, I guess the new common word is dispatch. But there's so much more to the dispatch. And that's the reason why I really don't like that term dispatching. Because, the one that does, independent dispatch, as since you're a dispatcher by trade, there's so much more than just dispatching a truck and telling the driver where to go. That is a lot more involved. So, that's one of the areas of services that we provide also. We recently acquired heavy truck warranties. So we're able to provide heavy truck warranties on anything from a semi truck all the way down to a box truck. So we're able to do that as well. We also own a TMS platform. So we started our own TMS and tech platform. And then we've got a pretty major large scale announcement coming out the first of the year as well, where we're taking the tech side even to a bigger level. We also integrated recently with a couple of my close friends and partners in business, and we created a driver platform called NextGen. So it's a lot more information to come on that side. So really moving towards integrating tech and really trying to adopt tech and provide people with that platform to continue to enhance the experience and continue to make owners and as well as independent business owners successful in trucking.
Okay. Yeah, man. That's I just wanted to make sure that we said all those things up front, because when you're a coach, you're a mentor, you have all these services. I want people to be formulating their questions and, how they can utilize you as a resource in this moment. So thank you so much for sharing that. I did have another question, because I know it takes a village to do all those things. How many employees do you have right now?
Right now we have 51, and we're still hiring diligently because we've got several key roles that we're working on filling. So, our goal is to really because we got a large scale project that we have that we're launching here pretty soon. So we're really trying to get up to 100 as quickly as possible. But right now we're sitting strong at 51. Let me say 51 and a half, because we onboarded one on Monday. So we're right at 51 and a half, about 52 folks. Yep.
Yeah. Congratulations, man, because I was talking to a family member recently, a cousin of mine. Once I found out, every time that we've spoken in the past, I knew that he had a company, but I didn't know to what size. And, he told me, it's kind of mid double digits, just like you. And it takes a lot of work to get there, like a lot of building of the infrastructure. So kudos to you, man.
No, definitely. It is, leading people, man. And I'm a big believer, Jory, of just hiring the right folks and just getting out of the way. I believe in just hiring people that are 10 times smarter than you and allowing them to kind of run with your vision. And that's kind of the premises on how we operate here is I just want to hire the best people. I want to hire people that are just brilliant and just can take things to the next level. And I just want to sit on the sidelines and cheer. That's it. That's kind of what my role is.
Oh, definitely, man. Definitely. I see you there. And, for the folks who don't know, how long have you been in transportation or logistics?
So as we close out year 2021 at the top of the year, it'll be my 22nd year.
Woo! So you've seen some things.
I've seen a lot. I've seen some things that I like, and I've seen some things that I don't like. But I love the industry that I'm in, and I certainly can't wait to see the progression that it continuously takes.
Right. I'm pretty sure we're going to ask some of those questions to delve in on the things that you like and you didn't like about the industry. But what was like your earliest experience with trucks?
When I was, let me take it back. When I was 11 years old, I never forget when it was pouring down raining. I was at my uncle's house right outside King Street, South Carolina. I'm from Alcaloo, South Carolina, for those that don't know. But we was right outside my uncle's house, and he was an over-the-road truck driver. And I always admired watching him coming back on Friday nights. He would always park his truck right in front of the front yard. And I was just infatuated with seeing it, and at that time I was really, really small. And I'll never forget that one day, it was like a Saturday, it was pouring down outside. And he's like, hey, I got to run to the truck because I left some paperwork that I got to get out of the truck. And the truck's probably about 30 minutes away in country time. Everything if you're from the country, everything's 30 minutes away. So it was like a 30-minute drive in the rain. And by the time we got there, we pulled up to the lot. At that point, he was hauling hazmat. He was a tanker hauler, so he's hauling gasoline. And I remember when we pulled up to the lot, man, I was just, my eyes was wide open because there's probably a sea of probably about 50 or 60 trucks out in the lot. And it was a field probably about 3 football fields wide. And I remember him pulling us up right up to his truck. We get inside the truck. I hop in on my side. He hops in on his side. And he had a KW, a W9K KW. I'll never forget that. It was a big long hood KW. And so I hop up inside of it, man. And at that point, as a kid, you're just like you're in a candy shop at that point. And so I'm looking around. He's got his little black and white TV sitting in the back, and got his things all set up right. And he's like, hey, man, we got to go. He say, hey, I want to go ahead and get this thing filled up before I pull out on Sunday night. So the fuel pump was probably about, I don't know, maybe about 100 yards away from where he was parked. And he was sitting on the bed, kind of going through paperwork. And I was sitting over in the jump seat. For those who know, the jump seat is a passenger seat. So I was sitting right over in the passenger seat. And he's like, hey, you want to hop over in there and sit in that seat? So I was like, yeah, man. So I go over to hop in and sit in the seat. And he's like, all right, I'm going to tell you something. He said, the first thing you need to do is you got to put your foot down on this left-hand pedal, and you need to turn that key just a little bit to the right.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at him, man. I grabbed that steering wheel with the most confidence, and I turned that key, man. And I swear it felt like there was diesel fuel that was going right through my veins. And I felt like I was transforming into something different, man. Ooh. It was like, it was an experience that I never could experience. I could never take away. And then, at that point, man, it was a 13 speed. So he's like, he kind of just talked me through it. He said, just put this thing up, push it forward, push red line in, yellow line in, let off the clutch and let the thing idle off. And then next thing I know, the thing jerked up. We were moving across the parking lot, and I was able to get it one gear, right? I went from second to third, and I felt really, really good about that. But, at that time, I was only 11 years old. And at that point, man, I could never get it out of my system. And that was probably, you might call me a nerd or whatever, man. That was kind of one of my favorite times in my life, man, was experiencing that.
No, I love it, man. I definitely love that story because it shows how true it is to you. But this is the question I have. Why is it in our culture to let kids drive these vehicles? Because I want to tell you the very, very first time that I drove a car, I was driving my brother's purple Dodge Neon, and it was a stick shift. I was no more than 10 years old, like just riding around in my neighborhood by myself. Like, why is our culture, brother?
Man, that's a good question, man. That's a good question. I had my first car when I was 14 years old. We got it from a junkyard. It was like $300. It was a Ford 1986 Ford Escort GT. And I mean, that was my first car. And, I guess that's a good question, man, because the very first thing I did when my youngest daughter turned 13 is every time I go out to the yard, I have her out there cranking landing gears out there with me. I have her uncoupling, coupling. I've taught her all of that stuff. She's been avoiding the time that comes when I'm gonna have to have her let off the clutch and really kind of introduce her to this industry. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, both my daughters have been behind the wheel of a truck. Both my daughters have done everything except pull it out of a lot. So, but I guess it's a good thing, though, and it's one of those things where it's kind of like passing a torch, and to me, that's kind of how I feel about it.
Right. Okay. Yeah, no, I respect that answer. I mean, it is about passing the torch, making sure that they're comfortable once it is time, to be out on the streets by themselves. So you start early, I guess you learn early. But when it comes to you, what do you feel like you're most passionate about when it comes to transportation or just trucking as a whole? Because I know you're passionate about this industry, but what would you say is kind of like the thing that you're most passionate about?
Success. That's the thing I'm most passionate about. Because I remember when I started, Jorie, there was no resources available whatsoever. I made every mistake that you can possibly make, from being an owner operator to being a fleet owner. I remember the first couple of trucks that I bought. I've made all those mistakes. And one of the things that kind of strike me so dearly is that 95% of the carriers that move freight around North America are not your JB Hunts. They're not your Swifts. They're not your Knight Transportation. They're not your Schneider Nationals. You'll see 10, 15, 20 of those trucks lined up at a truck stop, and you think, man, that the world revolves around those big guys. But it's not, man. 95% of the carriers in North America have less than 10 trucks. Mm-hmm. And just if you just from a number standpoint, about 450,000 carriers have one truck. So what I'm so passionate about and really the thing is I'm most passionate about is the small guy. At the end of the day, I want to see the small guy or gal. I want to see us successful in this. I want to see us being able to compete, being able to be in the room, being able to be able to accomplish the same things, because everything, I never ever underestimate small beginnings, because it's always that, all it takes sometimes is that one truck, sometimes it just takes that one trail and that one opportunity, to kind of turn somebody's life around. So I'm super passionate about success. I think that the biggest thing with success, there's a lot of components to it. There's a lot of people that fail in the business for a lot of different reasons. But at the end of the day, it all comes down to that one word for me. I'm just passionate about my people's success. If you latch on to me, as a mentee, as a student, as a client, I just want to pour in to make sure that you're set up for success. And I've gone at very far lengths to do my part to ensure that. And it's just painstaking sometimes when I see people that have the most potential that end up upside down in this business. And the sad part about it is 8 out of 10 people that get in the truck and do fail. And that's one of the things that I'm passionate about it, because I feel like those numbers are there's something that needs to be addressed.
Right. I mean, I can hear it in your voice that you're passionate about that, especially when it comes to, protecting the new driver, the new trucking company. And I know you got to make good decisions, especially on the loads that you accept and all those kind of things, to make sure that it's profitable. I know that you got some list somewhere, but just off the top of your head, can you give us like the high level things that would go into the calculations on how to come up with your cost per mile, for a trucking company?
Yeah, most of the time, your number one, obviously your number one variable cost per mile is fuel, and with that, you have to really truly understand how to calculate your fuel costs by miles per gallon. A lot of people that, you drive your cars up and down the streets every day. Those who are not, really in the industry, from a technical standpoint or from an operational standpoint, you drive around a car. If I asked you today, how many miles per gallon did you get on your car over the last 30 days? You probably don't have a clue. There's nothing wrong with that. That's because, our car is a vehicle that's used to take us from point A to point B. Our trucks are an investment that are designed to maximize revenue. So, The cost per mile in terms of fuel costs, is calculated by the total miles that you drive let's say a 30-day period or whatever time period you want to measure by the total amount of diesel fuel gallons that you actually have to purchase. So that's like your number one biggest variable cost. And then when you go on your fixed costs, for most small carriers, one of the largest fixed costs, just because you're a small guy, you're just getting started, is your insurance costs. A lot of times your insurance costs can hit you anywhere between $17,000 to, I'm not going to lie to you, Jory, I've seen some at $55,000, $60,000 for one unit because.
For one truck?
For one truck. Because, and here it goes, it's the mistakes that they make. Hey, I'm going to start my business. I'm going to hire my cousin Junebug, and me and Junebug are going to do this thing together. But Junebug got 3 moving violations in the last 2.5 weeks, and he's got a DUI from 2 years ago. And, I've seen anything. I'll be honest with you. I've seen them up at 100, 200, 300, 4,000, which is at that point, you're not even going to write the policy at that point because it's not even worth it. But you look at that as one of your largest expense. And then, you kind of, as you cascade down to your large expenses, you look at, the cost of your truck, whether or not you purchase it or you lease it. A lot of times what people think is, hey, I'm going to purchase my truck in cash. So the very first 2 weeks that I run my truck, it's all profit because I don't have a truck note. Well, that's not true because you had to borrow money from your company in order to buy the truck. Guess what? You need to pay your company back that money. So there's a lot of really, really high level, expensive fixed costs when you think about your overall cost of operation. And you have the things like your licensing, your driver salary, obviously is going to be a large percentage of that. Typically, your driver salary is going to be anywhere between 46 cents up to 65 cents per mile, depending on how you pay. Because on a percentage side, you may be paying, 25% usually lands down at about 47 cents a mile. To where if you're going to pay them on the actual per mile basis, it's going to put you around 65 to 70 cents per mile. So those are some of the big expenses that kind of tie into your cost per mile. Back in 2020, in 2019, the average cost per mile was right about $1.65, $1.66. So it means that the average cost for every single truck owner, operator, fleet owner, investor, it costs them a minimum of $1.65 to run their trucks. I can tell you now, man, I'm seeing those numbers increase kind of on the high side, a little alarming. I've seen some, above $2. I always tell folks if your cost per mile is above $2, it kind of makes me nervous because what we're seeing in terms of rate right now is an anomaly. And a lot of that's driven just because of overall, economic conditions, the world conditions are driving those things up. But when things kind of settle out, I don't know if we can sustain that cost per mile, and we're not giving ourselves much of a margin gap. So from that standpoint, I kind of look to see things sub $1.80, kind of $1.70. If we can get around that as far as your overall cost per mile, I think I can feel comfortable and I can work with that.
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, I think that gives our audience, our viewers, an opportunity to see what the goal is for that cost per mile. So thank you so much for sharing that. And, we spoke the other day and we talked about just how important it is to have the end in mind, building your company, but understanding what the end goal is. I'm bringing that up because it's kind of like news today that Dillon Transports, we've all seen those trucks everywhere. They got over 300 drivers. Apparently last night was their very last night in business after 40 years. And I can't speculate as to what caused it, but, it might be this type of thing. Those expenses got a little bit too much to manage. So you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I totally agree. There's a lot of things that happen on behind the scenes, where people see, they see, to me, a lot of times, man, truck count is ego. And I'll be honest with you. A lot of people say, oh, I've got 115 units. I've got 170 units. Like, to me, I mean, that's really, and I just want to just be frank, that doesn't impress me. Your unit count never impresses me. Because the thing about it is that I've seen carriers with 1,000, 1,500, 1,600, 1,700 trucks that operate in a negative quarter after quarter after quarter after quarter. And when you think about, a company like Dillon that's been around forever, a lot of times those contingency plans as they go through these lineages, these contingency plans are not put in place where they're bringing outside folks to make sure that things are moving forward towards the future and you're future-proofing your business and your business model is future-proof. And I can tell you that a lot of times, with Ride, all it takes is a couple of insurance claims because a company like that large, Typically they're on that fence between being able to be self-insured and then manage under insurance policy. So not knowing what side that they fell under. But if they're under insurance policy, all it takes is one or two accidents. And those one or two accidents or those one or two major incidents can really kind of put a huge strain on that. And you think about when you're that large, your support staff has got to be so much larger. So you already know that your margins are really kind of tight if you already have expenses that are out of control. Now just think about if you had a support staff of 50, 60 people that you have to actually feed as well. There's not much room for profit. And I can tell you as a business owner, and there's a lot of business owners on this call, you're only going to take those lumps for so long before you throw the towel in and you decide, hey, you know what? I'm going to do something completely different. I'm cashing my chips on completely different. That company had its own assets. So, their valuation was good enough probably that, hey, you know what? I'm just going to sell this thing on out and, I'm kind of walk away into the sunset. I can't be mad from a business owner standpoint because I am a business owner at the end of the day. I don't know what the overall end conditions, obviously there's going to be a lot of speculation out there, but, as a business owner, you got to make tough decisions. And sometimes from the outside looking in, we may see it as, hey, you know what, it could have been a variety of things that drove that. But sometimes you got to make those tough decisions in order to pivot forward. Nobody, we don't know what the future held for it. I tell you one thing, if I'm in that area or if I'm a carrier that, that runs and operates out of that market, if you're not going after those drivers and if you're not going out there and really kind of just going to try to solicit those drivers, then you're not doing yourself any justice. So, man, our heart goes out to them, man, because, we're getting around the backside of the year. The good thing about this industry is a lot of their drivers will probably, they'll land on their feet pretty quickly. So, one thing I will say is that once you have a CDL in your wallet, it makes it so much easier for you to maintain employment no matter what happens. So I'm sure that most, if not all, their drivers will fall on their feet. But I hate to see a business go down like that. At the same time, I see it open doors and opportunities for somebody else. So if you got a company that's got 300, 400 trucks, that's taking 300, 400 truck and trailers off of the capacity list. So now the new 300 and 400 carriers that go into the marketplace will have the opportunity to kind of carry on. So it's a gift and a curse. It's a gift and a curse.
I think that was very well said. It is a gift and a curse because I approached it from a similar standpoint. I was like, oh man, that, my heart does go out to all of the people involved, the drivers, the C-suite, everybody from that company, because it was a large company. But I also saw it as, well, hey man, somebody's about to come up. They got some
That's
assets
right.
that they're going to have to offload. Drivers are about to get a premium pay at some new company. So I kind of looked at it on both sides. So I think that was a great way that you tied that in. So, with you, brother, how long were you a driver? Because, I know that you said that you've been in the industry 22 years. How long of that were you an actual CDL Class A driver?
Right at 10 years. Right at 10 years. Yeah, I put in right at just a little over 1 million miles.
Okay. Yeah, man. I was raised by a trucker myself. This guy, he raised me. He my stepdad, but to be honest, man raised me. So
yeah.
So I saw him going through that process my entire life of, going over the road, having all the, the CB talk with all his buddies. What was your favorite part about being a driver?
Man, I tell you, to be honest with you, and this is something that, I haven't shared with a lot of people, but driving a truck saved my life. And the reason why I say that is because, I lost my mother when I was 11 years old, and that was really traumatic for me. Obviously any young kid at that age, having go through something like that is that's truly a traumatic experience. But then I turned around and I lost my father when I was 20 years old. So I dealt with just a tremendous bout of depression. And honestly, getting behind the wheel of a truck, I can replay in my mind nights over and over again with just that open road and just being out there and going through the mountains and going up and down hills and shifting gears. And it's just something about it that really kind of brought me the ability to kind of think and the ability to kind of grow. The one thing I can tell people that is when I was 21 years old, I was a kid, man. You just think about when you were 21 years old, you had the tagline of a man, but you weren't a man. You were a kid. You're still trying to figure it out. And I remember getting out there on the open road, man, and I realized very, very quickly on my very first delivery. I'll never forget it. That I was like, man, I got to grow up out here. And I've had a lot of great experiences in terms of seeing some beautiful places. You know, if anybody on here is from the Pac Northwest, man, that's probably the most beautiful country that you will ever see. I'm talking about like Oregon and Washington. And when you're driving through there, you see waterfalls and things like that right on the interstates, and being able to see elk and buffalo and stuff just cross the highways in South Dakota. Like that stuff it just was just interesting to me. And and one of another experience is driving across Utah in the middle of the summertime, where the entire highway looks like it's full of snow, but it's like 95 degrees outside. And, you know, I remember going to a truck stop and I was like, man, this is the most craziest thing I ever seen. Snow that doesn't melt. So I went to a truck stop one day and I just took my finger and I just scraped the ground. And I was like, man, I'm just going to be nasty and I'm going to taste it. And it was just salt. Like the highways are just, it's just, those are the things that kind of just amaze me. It's just so my folks, to kind of sum it up, my favorite thing is just to see, you know, seeing what God created, man, and having the opportunity to kind of see that firsthand. A lot of times when we're in our own little cities and we're in our own little silos, we don't have the opportunity to see the diversity and the value that, you know, this earth has brought to us. And truck driving has put me in every single state in America. I've seen every single major city. I've seen every single minor city. I've been to every single traffic jam you can possibly be in. So I would say that I've had the ability to travel the country and get paid to do it.
Man, that is that's an amazing response, brother. I'll tell you that. Like, I saw it as you were speaking. I saw these things, the visuals. So, man, that was a great, you know, a recount of your experience. So thank you. What would you say would be the hardest thing that you had to endure as a truck driver?
Oh my God, man. I tell you, and if anybody follows our company on Instagram and kind of hears me, I'm always preaching a message of slowing down, and I'm always preaching a message of governing your trucks and monitoring your ELDs. And I've seen the worst thing that I've seen is just probably about at least once, or I would say once or twice a week, is those fatality accidents that you just can't get out of your mind. You know, I'll never forget. I was going down the west side of Florida, going down 301 on the west side of Florida, and I'll never forget. There was a truck in front of me, and, you know, we were just running together. You could tell when trucks run together, you know, we taking the same turns, you know, going the same direction. And he went through a yellow light in the intersection, and I was about, I don't know, maybe about 2 car lengths behind him. And I could just see the light was turning yellow because I couldn't see it directly from behind him, but I was far enough behind him to see towards the side, the light was turning yellow. For some reason, a motorcycle just went directly across the intersection.
Oh.
And, you know, stuff like that, you'll never forget, man. I've seen people burned in cars. And I've seen truckers, you know, just fall asleep at the wheel and, you know, end up in the bushes, you know, and you know, I've seen so much loss of life out there. And a lot of it's just from recklessness. You know, it's a lot of it's from, you know, human error. You know, honestly, you know, there's no such thing as an accident as a commercial driver, in my opinion. And somebody like myself I've been a driver instructor. I've been a driver for a long time. I don't believe in accidents. I believe that they're incidents, and I believe every single incident is preventable, one way or the other. And I can tell you, you know, I tell people this all the time, man. If you care about your drivers, man, you got to pour into them the importance of safety, and don't take no for an answer. You know, I tell you, that's just the worst things that I can say I've experienced in my own time. And I would hate for me to have to be one of the ones that were involved in those fatal accidents. So, I hate to kind of segue into such a morose outcome, but that's the worst. You know, it doesn't get any worse than that.
Right. I mean, I completely understand, brother. I mean, I'm a safety first type of guy. I mean, my big brother just joined, and he'll tell you, I'm PPE all day. Hey, man, you better look twice before you make this turn. Like, that's the type of person I am. And growing up, I used to hear those stories from my father, you know, when he got off the road, just like, oh, man, I saw this. These folks was going this fast, and then this happened. And, you know, at my household, we watched a lot of movies. So it was kind of like I'm just hearing it as kind of like, you know, I'm visualizing, but it's like more cinematic versus what it truly means. And I kind of used to have this this thing like, man, I never get to see any of this kind of stuff, like as if it was something I was missing out on, until I saw my very first accident in college, and I was like, I pray this never happens. Like I'm constantly just praying for folks, that I see on the road that I feel like might be doing something a little sketchy, asking people to be vigilant around them and all that kind of good stuff. And so I understand where you're coming from. That is, that's very, very, very hard to see. And, it kind of just sit on you as you're continuing, your job as a professional, but you just witnessed all of these gruesome things. So, prayers to you too, because it's hard. That's traumatic. That's trauma for all parties involved.
Most definitely. And that's my thing about, that's the reason why, I won't let up. I won't let go, because until you've had to, I've had to, get out of my truck and, walk up on and try to provide aid. And by the time you walk up to the car, you walk away, and that's the type of stuff you don't get that out of your mind. And I just want people to be safe out here. I want people to really take it seriously. As a driver, you're not just a truck driver, you're a professional driver, right? The things is that you can't react and respond to outcomes and scenarios that take place in the typical motoring public as you are operating a 3,000 pound 4-wheel vehicle, because I got an 80,000 pound 18-wheel vehicle. And you have to operate with that mentality and operate with the level of professionalism. And what strikes me so much these days is that the level of professionalism as a driver has really it's plummeted. I remember when I started driving, truck drivers were the knights of the roads, you know what I mean? And things were a lot different back then. And I'm not to say that there wasn't the renegade, drivers out there. There wasn't the maniacs out there, but with the whole social media and the whole, cell phone thing, is just distracted driving. And it's just, things really just got out of hand. And I just want people just to get things and reel things back in.
I hear you, brother. Look, so we're just going to digress from that conversation, and we're going to transition. We're going to transition to, I know with you being the driver for, almost 1 million miles, a decade on the job, that means that you got to see a lot of different equipment. You got to see the dry vans, the reefers, the flatbeds, the step decks. What was your favorite out of all those pieces of equipment?
People gonna say I'm crazy, and one of my good brothers, Marcus, says that I'm weird, but I love flatbeds, man. My first job, I was doing the double drops, which is step decks, and it was just, I was getting out there and I was getting a workout. I guess I enjoyed solving a problem, and to me, like pulling a flatbed was solving a problem. I'd be out there in the middle of Reform, Alabama, throwing 8-foot lumber tarps. Those tarps weigh about anywhere between 80 to 100 pounds. I'm throwing 8-foot lumber tarps, man, and putting tarping things out. Meanwhile, you got someone that pulls up next to you in a Conestoga that just, they call them easy rolls, but pulls up in the Conestoga. You don't even have to touch it. But I really, really enjoy flatbeds partly because of that. But you want to know why the main reason why I love flatbeds so much is because I didn't have to set appointment times. I absolutely hated appointments. Like, I hated, I don't know what it was about dry vans and reefers and these weird appointment hours. With my flatbed, I can just pull up, open and close, unstrap, untarp, and do what I needed to do. Half the time I don't have to back it. But I really enjoyed flatbeds. That was like it was my favorite. It was something about the work. It was something about the ease to me. And I didn't have to deal with all of the stuff that the dry vans guys and the reefer guys had to go through, and also got to stay in pretty good shape because I always got to work out.
Nice. And would you say that the reefer, would you say that the dry van was your least favorite? Because it's complete juxtaposition between those two.
Yeah, it was. The dry vans were definitely my least favorite. Back then they didn't pay as much. I mean, they don't, in comparison to the others. You still got to deal with the detentions. You got to still deal with appointment times. But I would say that was my least favorite. It's the easiest, to be honest with you. Just getting in, it can be pouring out, raining outside, or you don't have to stop and do load checks and things like that. Just back up to the dock, open the doors, and then get back in your truck and wait for them to unload it. But, I don't know. I guess from a business perspective, I enjoy a challenge. And I think that wasn't challenging enough for me.
I hear you. And, just speaking about equipment, and, it's a shortage right now of trucks. It's a shortage right now of trailers. that's what everybody's preaching is there's a shortage, but like when folks are coming to you saying, hey, I really want to get into this industry and I might can get this, this diesel truck over here. What do you say to them? And, let me preface it a little bit more, because there's been some news like NFI Industries, back in 2019, they had 10 electric trucks, but, they plan on having 60 within the next 2 years. So like, would you advise folks to get those traditional diesel trucks when we're on the cusp of transitioning to like electric powered and hydrogen powered vehicles? Like, what would you advise somebody right now?
I do, and I'm going to say this, just from transparency, visibility, just being as connected in the industry as possible. From a full electric transition and a full electric / autonomous transition, I just want to kill just the speculation, really address the elephant in the room with that. I don't think we'll see it in our lifetime in a full capacity in terms of a vision standpoint. I'm from the era of watching the Jetsons. When I grew up, I was watching the Jetsons, and I knew for sure by the time I turned 25, we're going to have flying cars. I think the best thing that they got right now is semi-autonomous cars, because even on the autonomous cars, even my car, wait till it gets to a construction zone or, the lines don't line up right, then it freaks out and tells you to put your hands back on the wheel. I don't believe that we have a large scale infrastructure to support an electric, fully electric vehicles at this point. Number one. I think number two, from a battery range perspective, I think that Tesla developed, I think Nikola also developed a battery, but the ranges are only like 400 miles. And you got to think about the charge that's involved in that. I really just feel that we have such a long way to go from an infrastructure perspective. And then I think also as well is that not only do we have to think about the infrastructure available, but we also have to think about the shortage and lack of qualified technicians that are out here that are able to hop on these things and keep these things running and keeping these additional pieces and components of the infrastructure that have been added and keeping them going. Now, I'm not going to be the one to sit here and be oblivious and say it's not possible. Right. So I think that at some point in our lifetimes that we're going to see at some capacity. I mean, you think about the compressed natural gas vehicles right now. UPS has probably the largest fleet of compressed natural gas vehicles. They have a limited amount of refueling stations. Right. A small independent owner operator or a small fleet owner right now couldn't afford to buy a compressed natural gas vehicle and keep that vehicle profitable because it's so hard to get it fueled and maintain fuel in that vehicle. And then on top of that, you got to think about what the cost of repair is going to be on that vehicle and who can in fact repair the vehicle. So there's a lot of things that, on a small scale for us, maybe the larger carriers can really kind of facilitate that need because they can kind of plan out, especially because most of your large carriers, they're on what's called contract markets. So if I know that I've got a contract in Charlotte and that goes from Charlotte to Atlanta, we got 11 loads running every single day. All I need to do is set up charges. I can build a charging station out in Atlanta, Georgia. So by the time I get there, we can just charge and we can go ahead and reload back down in Atlanta. Yeah, you're going to see that in those instances. But as far as a large scale, from a spot perspective, kind of blanking in the country with these refilling stations and blanking in the countries with these facilities that can actually repair these vehicles, we got a ways to go.
I agree. We do got a ways to go. We're trying to get there, though, with that $1 trillion infrastructure bill. You know what I mean? So they're trying to get there to, put the infrastructure in place. And I guess speaking about that, I know we don't have that much time, guys. Like normally I know that we have about an hour and a half, you know what I'm saying? But, we're going to have to wrap this thing up soon. So I just wanted to preface this with, with that infrastructure bill, I was kind of seeing some, peripheral things about it regulating dispatching. Like, what was the case with that? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I know exactly what you're talking about. And there's a big section on building a task force from the FMCSA to oversee an investigation into what dispatching should look like. And I can agree with that. to a certain perspective as well, because it's the same type of situations that you see with these brokers that are not operating within the correct parameters and framework. So when you think about this, right, as a broker, you are a bona fide agent of a shipper. As a dispatcher, you're not legally a bona fide agent of anyone. You say that you represent the carrier, but what's happening with a lot of these dispatch companies, and it's leaving a lot of these shippers out to dry and leaving brokers out to dry, is that there are a lot of fly-by-night companies. There's a lot of double brokering that's taking place. There's a lot of legalities that when it comes down to, hey, you know what, this particular carrier fell off a load. There's no liability that falls onto the actual dispatcher. That dispatcher has no skin in the game. And I think from that perspective, I think the infrastructure bill, what it's attempting to do is establish a task force, just like it's attempting to establish a task force for women in trucking. So it's building kind of awareness around these platforms, which is really going to start driving some energy. It's going to drive some attention to that. What we'll see coming out of that, if that bill does pass, I think it's going to take some time before it starts gathering steam. But you're going to see regulations happen for dispatch companies, just like you had to, just like as a freight broker, you got to carry a bond. I wouldn't be surprised, Jorie, if a dispatcher had to carry a bond likewise. So I really, truly believe that it's going to be good for the industry to clean it up. I think that within the pandemic, when the pandemic came, becoming an entrepreneur became like 1,000 times more popular. The dispatcher has become so much in terms of from a standpoint of excitement around it and just ease of getting into it. Anybody can just get an LLC, take a course and be a dispatcher. There needs to be regulation around it. This industry is a regulated industry. It needs to be regulation behind it. And I do feel passionately about that piece. And I can say, yes, I think that needs to take place.
Okay. So look, I mean, a lot of that stuff I can agree with too, just because, there are people out here trying to make quick money and there are professionals. So, there is a huge disparity in what they're actually doing and, how much skin they really have in the game. If you could, you hear illegal dispatching all the time. What would you consider illegal dispatching?
So I get a load. I say, Jorie's got a load posted on, truck stop or whatever, and the load's paying $1,500, right? I'm a dispatcher and I'm dispatching for Adam, and I call the driver and say, hey man, this load's paying $1,200. I get the rate con, white out the actual rate on the rate con. The money comes, do a quick pay. Money comes directly to me. I pay the carrier to quick pay to $1,200, and the carrier's out $300. On top of that, I'll bill them for whatever percentage I'm charging them for. So there's a lot of situations that happen, and it kind of blows my mind when I hear some of these stories and I look on some of these Facebook groups. It's like, hey, yeah, my dispatcher doesn't show me the rate cons. Does your dispatcher show you the rate cons? And I'm like, what?
Right.
And I remember, man, when I was a driver, when I was on, when I was a fleet owner operator, like dispatchers didn't exist. I'm gonna tell you this for those that don't know this. Dispatching is new, right? I mean, when I say it's new, it's new. It's just something that really, I would never thought of it to take steam the way it has taken from a third party perspective. But then once you see people that find loopholes in it, the biggest one is that I found is just tampering with the rate con. Just the rate con tampering that really boils my blood.
I hear you. I mean, and to be honest, I guess we got these PDF editors. You can do some wild things on a rate card.
You can.
Yeah.
You can. I've even seen dispatchers book under other MCs, right? So, they might have a carrier that on there, that carrier's only got 30 days, right? And since that carrier's only got 30 days, you might have a company like Cowan that says, hey, we can't use you. You only got 30 days. Well, I'm going to give you Jorie's MC number here. I've got a carrier that can haul that load. Jorie's got 2 years on his MC. We booked the load, but I put it on the truck with 30 days of experience to get him the freight. So stuff like that has to stop. And stuff like that has no place in this industry.
You know what? I agree with you wholeheartedly. There are some, that's wild to think about a dispatcher not showing an owner operator a rate con. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that don't even sound about right. And you did mention that dispatching is relatively new. I mean, you started a company in 2017 that was actually, I'm not even going to approach it like that. Brother man, tell me about the very, very first client you had as a dispatcher.
Oh yeah. Okay. So I remember, I've been always big on just helping folks. And one of my mentees, actually was one of my my referral partners, reached out to me and said, "Hey, I've got a situation. I got this guy. He's ready to quit his job. He's walking away from corporate America. Yada yada yada. He's got a 30-foot hotshot, but he needs help finding loads. Can you help him with that?" Back then, when I started my consulting side of the business, I didn't care what it was. If I had to help you create a logo, I'm helping you create a logo. I'm up till 2-3 o'clock in the morning trying to design logos. I did everything. So she was like, "Hey, can you help him?" I said, "Sure." I was like, "What's the need?" Well, he's having a hard time to keep his truck loaded. So I was like, "Okay, cool. I'll help him out." So, I pulled up my DAT, pulled up my truck stop, pulled up my, my other load boards that I use. I helped the guy find freight. And, me and him kind of worked out an agreement like, hey, I find freight for you. Just pay me 7%. And, we're just going to keep it as that. And, we did that for years. He was he's one of my first all-inclusive client, but I'll never forget, I would ask him, I was like, "Hey, can you do me a favor? Just take me a picture of every single load that I booked for you. Just do me a favor. Just take a picture of every single load that I booked for you." So what he did, he was go back, take the pictures, and he would send the pictures to me. And one day I was like, I want to see how far I can take this. So I'm going to make me an ad on Facebook. And it was a group on Facebook called Hotshot Warriors, right? Hotshot Warriors at that time had like 26,000 members in the group. And it was a bunch of people with dualies and flatbeds. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to put this in the group and I'm just going to put a little ad and tell everybody what I do. That was on a Friday, right? On that Monday morning, I had 41 trucks that I had to dispatch that morning. So at that point, I was like, wow, you know what? I can create a business model off of this. And that kind of how that leg of my firm actually took off as well.
Man, so I don't know if you guys realize this, the non-dispatchers in the audience, but to wake up and have 40 plus additional clients to dispatch for, well, that takes a lot of work. It takes infrastructure, it takes systems, it takes everything. So, that kind of, I think that's the perfect segue into what you have built for, your fellow dispatchers, brother. Can you please tell folks about INNOPORTAL?
Yeah. So, one of the things is I try to create solutions to problems versus create competition. That's just me as a person. That's just my passion in the industry. I want to create solutions to folks so that we can all be successful. It's an $800 billion industry. There's enough money for everybody. So I remember when we're going through the pain points of bringing on multiple MCs when I first started my dispatch business is having a system of organization, right? I remember I started with the file cabinets and the spreadsheets on Excel and all that good stuff. And I said, you know what, it's got to be a better way. So, my mind got to the paper. I found me a developer and I worked with a developer for about 1.5 years, developing a system that was able to manage multiple MCs, allows you to invoice directly to the MCs, allows you to give notification directly to brokers. So every single problem that came up, like I hate hearing brokers call and wanting to get a POD. So we created a system to solve that, right? I hate trying to do track and trace. So create a system to solve that. I hated having to have a file cabinet full of rate confirmations or bill of ladings if I had to go back and refer to those bill of ladings or rate confirmations in the event we had to file a broker bond. I hate having. So we created a system that kept that up and kept all those things together. And, voila, 1.5 years later, we created INNOPORTAL. So far, INNOPORTAL, has been such a successful project. We 20,000 loads in INNOPORTAL, worth millions and millions of dollars in terms of line haul and revenue to our clients. I just wanted to provide a support system that works well for them. We got the newest edition of the INNOPORTAL now. We'll actually take the actual bill of lading and rate confirmation now. They'll send it directly to the factoring company. So the carrier doesn't even have to worry about doing factoring paperwork anymore. So we're just continuously adding on layers to make it much, much more simpler for the client. And INNOPORTAL will be rolling out the broker platform the first of the year in January. So the brokers will now be able to go into the inner portal and do the things that they need to do on their end as well.
Okay. I can't wait to use INNOPORTAL, y'all. And if you are interested in getting your subscription, holla at me. We might have a link for you. So Adam and I, we're going to talk about that. But
definitely,
the fact is having a system that keeps all that information organized, nice and neat, and accessible by all of your team members is the key. That's the sauce right there. Is
that's
like
right.
being able to have your whole team have access to everything that they need to successfully and effectively do their job.
Absolutely.
Yeah, man. So look, I know that we don't have much time. I did want to, bring up, see if there were any folks that had a couple questions. Let me see if I can just open to everybody. If you have a question, I'm going to say that we're going to limit it to 2 just because we really don't have as much time. So go ahead and raise your hands if you had a question. And brother, since you dispatch, you got a very dedicated team of dispatchers. We recently had Reed Clements on the show, and we had a great conversation about Sonar. And just what it does and the capabilities and how it can drive those business, making decisions. Like, do you guys use Sonar too?
Absolutely, 100%. So funny thing that you say is that we actually have Sonar embedded into our version of INNOPORTAL. So
what?
anytime one of our dispatchers logs into their INNOPORTAL, they all get a customized dashboard. And within that customized dashboard, they'll get the Sonar heat maps, which provide them with the density and the UTI, as well as the outbound tender volume indexes as well. So that way they make more data-driven decisions. And I'm an analytical person. I'm that type of guy. I believe if you can measure it, you can improve it. So I love Sonar. Sonar is something that I live and die by, to be honest with you. It's probably the best. It's the closest thing you got to a crystal ball in any industry.
Yeah, I agree, man. Once I learned about those services, just the fact, look, guys, if you don't know what Sonar is, holla at me. I'll tell you now, but if you're interested in it, holla at me. I'll get you hooked up. So, actually, look at that. I just spoke this man up. Reed Clements just joined us. But Sonar, in essence, is measuring all the tendered loads that are getting sent via EDI to these major carriers, and it lets you know which areas are or which tenders are being rejected. And the short side of that is saying that if there's an area, a market, a freight market where there's a lot of rejected tenders, well, that means that there's a surplus of freight. Surplus of freight means that it's a higher demand to get that freight moved, so you can get some better rates out of those locations. And it also lets you know the flip side of that. Lets you know the places that you want to be as a truck driver. It lets you know the places you want to avoid. But it also says the exact same thing for a broker if they were leveraging that.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. So if you guys are interested in Sonar, holla at me. If you're interested in getting your own subscription to INNOPORTAL, holla at me. And we on both holla at Adam. So, brother, I really just wanted to say thank you for your time.
My pleasure.
Was there anything you wanted to say as we close out?
Just to be honest with you, I think the biggest thing I want people to realize is in this industry, the best advice I can give you is have tunnel vision. And I mean that with the most sincerity. If you put your head down in this business, no matter what's going on, no matter what's happening around you, you can be successful. But this industry and this business itself is exactly what you put into it. If you slack off, if you decide to only put 60% into it, then you're not going to get 100% out of it. This is one industry that you cannot play around with. You have to either be in or be out. It's very expensive to get into this business. It's very expensive to maintain this business, but it's probably one of the most lucrative things that I've ever done in my lifetime. I saw my first $1 million before I was even 30 years old through this business, so I can speak to it. But the thing about this industry, it's not easy, and it's not for the faint-hearted. If you have the least bit of doubt in yourself in doing this, you got to step back and kind of decide, between yourself, if it's something that's really meant for you, because there are going to be days that you're going to just have your head down and you're going to think about why you got into it. And there's going to be those days, just like, I guess I compare it to playing golf. I'm terrible at golf. But the one thing that keeps me going back at it time and time again is that out of 100 swings that I'll make on a day, all it takes is that one that you look at and you put your hand over your eyelids and you kind of look off into the distance at 200 yards out there that drove out there. That's what makes you come back. Trucking is just like that. You're going to have a lot of bad days in this business, but the good days always outweigh the bad. You just got to stick to it and just have that tunnel vision.
Adam, it's been a pleasure, brother.
Likewise.
Those are some profound words. Thank you so much for pouring into the community here at the Transportation and Logistics Clubhouse. We greatly appreciate it, man. You're always welcome here. So if there's anything that I can do to help promote or, shed light on anything that you have going on or your message, just let me know, because I appreciate what you do. And, man, you're a pioneer here. So, again, I just want to say thank you.
I appreciate the platform. I love what you're doing. Please keep up what you're doing. It's just a blessing to the community. It's a blessing to folks to being able to have this platform. And, I say this with the most heart, if you're on this clubhouse, stay plugged into stuff like this, because these are the resources that I didn't have getting started. Take advantage of what you have.
Thank you, sir. Again, everybody, that's Adam. We're going to be closing out. I mean, Adam, you feel free to drop off anytime you want to. But y'all, again, appreciate the support. Every single week, y'all are coming in here and really supporting, whatever. And I just want to say I truly, truly appreciate it. If there's anything that you guys are looking for when it comes to the different programs or, topics, you're a subject matter expert and you want to share what you got going on, I just say reach out to me. Hit me up on IG at Jorie Shaun, JorieShaun. Hit me up. I'm very responsive. And I want to see this thing grow, because I know it can go to a very, very, very large level. So if there's anything I can do, just let me know. I think that's always my closing. If there's anything that I can do, it's because I mean it. So I just want to say thank you to the longtime listeners and supporters. And from here, I'm just going to say peace out. Y'all have a great one.